That's what I would say. Hey, right there, caught in mid-sentence. Everyone,
there we go.
This is Late Night Stax Rosch. How are you, sir? And I believe I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Rosch was the last name.
Rosch.
Everybody gets it wrong. So everybody gets it wrong. I don't fault you.
So close. So let me say this. You wrote a book.
Yes, finally.
I'm going to say the name of the book, Disproving God and 5 Adequate Reasons to be an Atheist. And now I'm going to read a little bit about you. So I know who you are. You were on my old show, Naked Diner Podcast, like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I know, right? So for the few people out there who didn't hear that show from like 5 or 6 years ago, let's reacquaint you. I'll just read your bio. Stax Rosch is an atheist activist, writer, blogger, and former talk radio host. He is the former head of the Philadelphia Coalition of Reason and has served on the board of the Freethought Society of Greater Philadelphia. He has written for Examiner.com, was a Huffington Post contributor, and worked as a freelance writer for Publishers Weekly's religion section. He continues to blog on the SkepticInk Network, SIN, at SkepticInk.com/dangerous talks. Anything else I should add to that august bio, that resume?
Not really. I mean, I've just been around the atheist community for a long, long time.
Dude, I know that my computer's about to die and it's not plugged in properly. So this is really professional. Boy. But I'll be right back because otherwise the whole system's going to go.
All right, no problem. I'll cover for you. Okay, so I did do radio before. I did do podcasting before in the early days of podcasting. So I worked for a small AM radio station, and I had political guests on. I had it was so small, the station, that I had very few people that listened, and it was like towny people that listened. So what I would do is I'd tape the show and then I'd run home and upload it to the podcast. And it was on the Freethought Podcast Network that the Infidel guy did.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the day, it was the Infidel guy, Rational Response Squad, and me. My show was Dangerous Talk. And we were like the Thursday block, I think it was. And yeah, it was crazy.
I remember when I started blogging maybe 10 years ago or so, I would pop over to your blog every once in a while. This is before you joined SkepticInk, to tell you the truth.
Probably. I just had dangeroustalk.net.
Right. So now we're going to talk about inside baseball stuff about blogging right now, which is ripping stuff that people are tuning in for. But no, it's a bit, I'm over at Pathos now, obviously.
Yeah. I tried to get in there a while back, and they wanted to put me on a trial basis, and I didn't have time. I wanted to do like a real, thing at the time.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'd like to talk more about that, but I can't. That's
fine.
I'll say hello to everyone in the chat first before we dive into the book. Comrade,
all right.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Tobin Templeman. Glad to see that you're here. Scott Duke. Gonna be a good time, I'll tell you this, with Stax.
Cool.
Dude, all right. Before we go into the book, I just want to say the last time we talked was not during this particular apocalypse, but about the previous apocalypse, which happened to dive into this apocalypse. And I'm talking about no other than Donald J. Trump. We talked.
We
talked like before he got elected.
Yeah. I'm trying to think.
It had to have been in 2015. That's how long ago.
Okay. Did we talk about the apocalypse of the Harold camping at all? I don't remember if we talked.
I don't think we did. No, but what I'm intrigued at, being a skeptic and an atheist as someone in the movement, how the hell did you survive 4 years of Donald J. Trump?
That was really, really difficult. It was tough, man. I'm in Pennsylvania too, where we got decided here, and it was tough, man. That was rough because, I'm involved in politics locally too. So like we were really pushing. I was in the room. We had the county party, the victory party for Hillary, and they were calling states for Trump, and everybody still is drinking their wine and celebrating. Ah, it's just one. Who cares? He'd have to run the board. And I'm like, I remember leaving that party early before they called anything, thinking like, we've lost this, and they're partying. It was like out of a movie. Like it was weird.
It's
It
just
was
like the Titanic.
weird. Oh my God. Like I saw what was happening, and the whole room is partying as if they don't see anything.
Well, back in 2000,
crazy.
Just before ever since the Republican primaries during 2016, I thought Trump was going to get it.
Yeah. Well, I thought Hillary was not a great candidate, and I got a lot of flack for saying that. But
me too. I had people just roll into my show, Naked Diner podcast, and they're telling me, Andy Hall, you're full of crap. Of course, Trump is going to lose. It's like, I don't think he is.
Yeah, I was like, Hillary one was not the best candidate, and then she was doing everything wrong, and I was like, and every time I call it out, people would yell at me like, "Oh, you're helping Trump by calling out that she's doing something wrong." It's like, I don't know, I'm trying to fix things. I don't know.
Just trying to be skeptic and stuff, right?
I don't know.
I think
Whatever.
I think that's what we're supposed to be doing as skeptics, is to be skeptical about everything. Dovetailing back into the book.
Sure.
I would have to say that I learned things by reading. It's a short book.
Yeah,
it's 7 pages long. Links to the description are, the link to the book is in the description. And there it is. Disproving God. 5 adequate reasons for being an atheist. Good stuff. I learned a few things, and one of them, and I don't think I'm giving anything away.
Okay.
This is just a bit, because I know I don't want to ruin the book.
Right.
But there's always the Karl Popper, right, the philosopher.
Right.
I believe he was the one who's gave the questions, like, how do you know you're wrong, right? How do you know that you're wrong? And it's kind of like the corollary of that, flipping that around, is what kind of evidence would you need for God to exist? And I've seen other atheists and skeptics get hung up on that. And the way that you handled that in the book, sir, that I am taking that and I'm putting it in my rhetorical gun.
Yeah, because I think it's really good, because it really gets the theists on the record supporting the premises of the argument. And then when you hit them with the conclusion, there's no wiggle room out, because they've already agreed to the premises.
Exactly. So that was one of the aspects of the book I really enjoyed. And also, it was a nice trip down memory lane for me about the early days. Well, the mid 90s and everything, and what was going on at the First Reason rally. That I was at, and it did rain. It was
poured. Yeah.
So
that was the best Reason rally. That Reason rally was so much fun, though.
It wasn't.
Yeah. I think I'm actually quoted in Wikipedia, or cited in Wikipedia, I guess, because I gave out some of the numbers of the amount of people who came in on that, because I was reporting for I don't remember if it was Huffington Post or Examiner at the time. It was Huffington Post. I was reporting from Huffington Post about it, and I asked people in DC, like security people, what they thought our attendance numbers were, and I got a couple of different. We're not allowed to officially give out numbers, but unofficially, we think it's probably around this amount of people. And I kind of asked a few different people and got about that same number. And so I'm cited on Wikipedia. I'm excited about that.
So how would you typify, if we were in an elevator, you were going to give me an elevator pitch for the book, something like a few seconds. How would you pitch your book?
I actually did. I think I did that on the back of the book. Where do I have that here? Did I do that? What if I told you that in a few short minutes I could disprove the existence of God? Skeptical? I know I would be. But whether you are an atheist like me or a fervent believer, this small booklet will challenge what you think you know about knowledge and the existence of the divine. Plus, I'm funny.
Funny helps.
Yeah,
Funny
I think so.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so the book is kind of in two parts. Like the first part's the more analytical, disproving God. And I wanted to be strong on that so that religious believers be like, oh, you can't disprove God. And I wanted to challenge them and get them engaged with that strong wording. And then tone it back a little bit, 5 adequate reasons to be an atheist.
Right.
And that's where more the funny aspects of things and a few arguments here and there make it funny.
Tons of mice says in the chat, for proof of God could pay my rent. I believe the checking account existed. That would be a start. That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's lots of ways to disprove God. But what I think is unique about mine is that it's very easy and very hard to wiggle out of. Not to say that they won't try. I mean, they're going to try. And it's not going to convince anybody like on the spot. That's not how atheism works. But it will at least start them on that road.
Yes. I know that here in the chat, Prince Vegeta, I wonder if you're a vegetarian, because I'm a vegetarian. But he mentions Epicurus, and I know that you mentioned Epicurus.
Oh, right. Yep. I mentioned that too. Yeah.
In your book. Yeah. So I'd like to ask authors if they could read something from their book, just to give the audience a taste. You have something set up?
I do have something that I think would be okay here. This is from the second part of the book, because I don't want to give away the first part. The second part of the book, 5 Adequate Reasons to be an Atheist. And one of those reasons is, oh, hell. I'm just going to read part of that. And I think the title is kind of self-explanatory to set that up a little bit. Where do I want to start at? The thing about eternal torture is that it's supposed to be, eternal. And as it turns out, eternity is kind of a long time. The average human has a lifespan of 80 plus years. Some humans have been known to live past 100 years, but in the grand scheme of things, that's still a pretty short amount of time. Let's say you know someone who is a horrible person from their teenage years on. They were angry, hateful individual. Then at the ripe old age of 93, they die because angry, bitter people tend to live longer. They're the ones that never die, basically. This means that the person was a mean and nasty person for 70 some plus years. How long should they be tortured after they die? And the correct answer is 0. No one deserves to be tortured, not for 5 minutes, not for 50 years, not for 100 years. No one deserves to be tortured for 1,000 years or 1,000,000 years. And certainly no one deserves to be tortured for all eternity for finite transgressions. Even in our flawed justice system of the United States, convicted felons are allowed the opportunity for reprieve and parole of their sentence. The extremely flawed American justice system acknowledges that people can change. Their sentences can be reduced if the offender has shown that they have been reformed from their offending ways or have demonstrated good behavior while incarcerated. Sure, there are many different religious believers out there who try to make up rules of hell in order to make a more palatable concept. The general rule is that unless you are saved here on earth, you are doomed for all eternity. Basically, the rule is once damned, always damned. God's divine justice is much less nuanced than our obviously imperfect justice system of the United States. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I love that argument. I love talking about how much torture does a person need to have, and why would you torture the person to begin with? If if the goal is to create a more harmonious life, or to create behavior change of a person in this life, why would you torture them in the next life?
Right. And what really bothers me about that is Christians are always big on, we're good. They always talk about forgiveness, but that forgiveness ends when you die.
Yeah.
Then that's when you're tortured for all eternity, and that's it. There's no forgiveness after that.
Right.
So according to their, and Christians some Christians today try to back away from that. Like, oh, hell's like a good thing because it's separate. People want to go to hell. They hate God so much they want to be separate. No, all that's not biblical. That's them making it up to make it seem less extreme, because the truth of their own belief system is so horrific that if they really acknowledged what the Bible says, they'd be horrified.
Exactly. Tons of Mice brings up a good point from the chat. God created infinite punishment for finite crime, so God is the only one who deserves infinite punishment.
Okay. If he were real, then sure.
If he was real, right? I want to say hello to Simply Secular Dave. He's from the West Coast over in Canada. Glad to see you there. And Theo,
cool.
Glad to see you here too. And there is only Zool, something for nothing. You're right. There is only Zool. So because I know you have these conversations, or you've had these conversations with Christians.
Always, yeah.
How do they respond when you bring up these points?
A lot of times they'll try to back away from it. They'll try to change the topic. That's usually when I bring up my argument, that they immediately try to change the argument to something else, something that they're more used to dealing with, like the first cause argument, or I love it. They'll try to change it to morality, because that's my next book's going to be on morality, because I'm excited about that. That's my topic.
Excellent.
So I'm excited, but that's where they change direction. They try and find something else.
Right.
But there's a reason why in college Christians used to call me the soul murderer, and it's because I want that as a title for a book someday.
The soul
I just
murderer.
need to come up. I just need to come up with the right content to fit the title. But I love that title of the soul murderer, because I've deconverted people, and they didn't. The one person who gave me that, she said, "It's not. We know souls can't be killed, but you're damning souls by turning religious people into non-religious people. So I'm damning their souls."
That's fantastic, dude. You should.
I love that title, the soul murderer.
Soul murderer. Yeah, definitely.
I'll take it.
Yeah, take it. Right. Exactly.
I'm taking it. Yeah, but what happens with deconverting people is it doesn't happen like a snap of a finger. It's not. And I talk about this in the book too a little bit. With how it's the opposite of the born again experience. Like, for the born again experience, you have somebody who doesn't care about religion, but religion is in the background of our society. There's churches on almost every street corner. So even if somebody's not religious, but they don't think about religion's out there, and it's in the peripheral. And then there's several different reasons why it happens. Usually they're at a low point in their life, and then somebody goes, "Have you heard about Jesus?" And then they have that aha moment, that born again aha moment. For atheism, it doesn't happen that way. They'll argue with you, you hit a good argument, and then they'll still argue with you, they'll leave, and then they'll research that argument. They'll ask their pastor, they'll ask their other religious friends, their Bible study, about, can you believe this atheist said this? How would you respond to that? So I know how to respond to it next time. And then they hear the responses, and they don't seem adequate. And then they think about it, and then they go to their church, and then more questions start coming in, but they can't come out as an atheist even to themselves right away. And then when they can admit it to themselves, they can't admit it publicly because they're in this culture of religion, and it takes a long time. And then a couple months, maybe years later, I'll get an email from them, or a Facebook post or whatever. Back in the day, it was the MySpace. And they'll say, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but we had this debate this while ago, or where I ran into you at this place, or we had an email exchange here. And I want to tell you I don't believe in God anymore.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, so it does happen. And there's this great story where there was a guy, when I was in college, there was a program called Do You Agree with Tom? How I Got Over Alcoholism. And it turned out, and I guess Campus Crusade for Christ does programs like this all the time. This is a template program for them. They just use somebody different every time.
Right.
But they didn't announce that it was Campus Crusade for Christ doing the program. And of course, Tom got over alcoholism through Jesus, and they didn't put that up front on the posters. They wait until you get into the door to tell you that. So I was the president of the Philosophy Club at the time, and my fellow philosophy friends convinced me to do a program, Do You Agree with Stacks? How I Got Over God? And I did that program, and Tom came to my program. And we became friends after that, actually. And he would come to my to Philosophy Club office hours, and we'd talk about religion, and we would debate religion. We'd become friends. I'd hang out with him a lot, even though he was still very religious. After he went to divinity school, then he went to Yale Divinity School, and we would email back and forth, like long email letters, with personal stuff, and then, debating something, And then I got that email that said, hey, you know what? I'm not sure I believe in God anymore. I'm not sure he's there.
Job well done.
Yeah, it took a while. And you know what, though? It was tough for him, though, too, because that was his life. So he had a lot of trouble coming to grips with God not being there.
Well, it's difficult to refute something when it butters your bread. When it supplies a roof over your head and cash in your pocket and food in the refrigerator, it's difficult to walk away from something like that.
Right. And he was always a super thoughtful person. Like when I would have barbecues at my house, where I'd have people of different walks of life, that I've met through over the years come over, and he would be the first person there and the last person to leave, and he would always be the most interesting guy in the room. Yeah. And we'd always talk, even when he was religious, when he wasn't religious, both times, and even when he wasn't religious, he wouldn't outright say he wasn't religious, and he'd still question my atheist friends, and he'd still question my theist friends, and he just an amazing guy. But the moral of the story is that he was somebody who, after a while, by learning the Bible through divinity school, I mean, he knows the Bible better than anybody, he realized it was God's not up there. He's not watching. Right.
Yeah, I'm glad that you touched on the deconversion experience, because I actually have the paragraph that you wrote about the difference between religious conversions versus deconversions, and it really resonated with me, Stacks.
Right.
And I'll tell you why. Because I don't think, and this is the big secret here, the not so big secret, I don't think people are rational.
Yeah. We had Donald Trump for president. I couldn't imagine.
Okay. So I don't think people are rational. I think we are capable. I'm not the first person to say this. We are capable of reason, but that does not make us reasonable creatures. And I think a vast majority of the time, a vast number of decisions that we make are irrational. And then we think of reasons why.
Right. Rationalize.
Right, we rationalize. Right, the decision comes first, and then we have to figure out why we made the decision. We rationalize it, and then I thought to myself, well, if we come to these conclusions irrationally, what's the difference between a religious conversion versus a deconversion. And what you just said and what you wrote in that one paragraph in your book really resonated with me, because, atheists, even though, yes, there is a changing of opinion, the process is very different.
Right.
Because religious conversion occurs despite rationality, right?
Right.
There is some kind
it's generally a real emotional pull for religion.
Right. And that's why they call it a leap of faith, right?
Right.
It isn't something that you reason yourself into typically. But the atheist deconversion, the skeptic deconversion, is because of reason most of the time. It is this, and like you just said, it's walking through this process of looking at claims and weighing them out, and then realizing it's bunk.
Right. And it takes a while. And some people it takes longer than others. And it has nothing to do with intelligence or anything like that. A lot of it has to do with, where you're brought up, what culture you're surrounded by. Can you, come out of it on your own? And then are you in a position where you can come out of it, come out of the closet as an atheist? Are you in that position? There was an atheist I ran into years ago. I think his name was Stephen Ewell, and he was a psychologist, and he was a pastor, and he wrote a book too. I don't remember the name of his book, but it was a really great book. Ewell is UHL, I believe, if anyone wants to look him up, because he's really great. And he was a pastor, and his book is about when he left, he didn't know how to leave, because this is where he makes his money. Like, how do you're leaving your job, and so but he transitioned it into psychology, become a psychologist, because that was the easiest. That's what he does as a pastor, is he counsels people. So for him, that was a good transition. But I think we had years ago, they had the Pastor Project or something like that, where they did
the Clergy Project. The Clergy Project.
Yeah, Clergy Project. That's it. Right. Where they had something similar set up to do that kind of thing, to transition clergy out. Because there's a lot of clergy out there that really don't believe it, because, like my friend, they know too much. They know too much. And after you learn enough about it, I gotta think you figure out this is BS, but there's nothing. You're trapped. This is your life. This is it's hard.
If you are a minister and you are one of the right wing ministers, and you then realize it's bunk and you decide to get out of it, and this is just my own feelings on this. It's like, good for you. I'm glad that you're out. But I swear to my fictitious God, what I really want to say is that how are you going to make this right?
Right.
How are you going to, maybe you can't make it right, but how are you going to try to?
Right. And it's tough. It's tough. And the balancing of the scales is never an easy thing. And it always weighs harder on the person who's trying to do the balancing. I had a great quote about that at one point, but I don't remember what it is right now, because I'll have to put it in another book somewhere.
It's
my next book.
Another one of my thoughts, by the way, where you were talking about getting these emails about people who have seen the light, and the light is atheism, or at least, not God. It's like, what would be great is having a soul murderer's corkboard that you could just print them up and just put them up there, and just.
I used to do
that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't call it the soul. So in college, I lived in the dorms, and people would put religious quotes on their door, on their whiteboard, right? And so me and my roommate, we would leave comments on their whiteboard, on their religious quotes, and get into religious arguments on their whiteboards. It was funny. And then we came up with the idea of making a quote of the day ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we put up a quote of the day. Me and my roommate, we had a pool that we pull from, and we put up a quote of the day. Usually something that was thought provoking, and we put up blank pieces of paper underneath, and people would write arguments and debates about the quote, and it was great. It was a great exercise, and we loved it.
You got your grad degree in philosophy, didn't you?
Yeah, I have a master's in philosophy.
So I have to ask you. I don't think I asked you this the last time we talked, like 6 years ago or so, 5 years ago. But what was your thesis?
I didn't finish the thesis part as much as I wanted to. It was going to be about intention ethics, but I couldn't quite get it finished, so I opted for like this master exam kind of thing at the end instead. But the idea was about if the idea of what I was going to do had to do with if you have the right intention on something, but you're not qualified to do it, you're still morally blameworthy.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't quite figure out exactly how to work that through.
Sure.
So I feel a little bit of shame that I didn't finish that.
The thesis process is difficult, to say the least. One of my favorite vampire movies, in fact, is about a PhD student who gets turned into a vampire.
What movie was that?
It's called The Addiction. It's a beautiful little black and white movie. I think it came out in like 93 or 94. You can find it on YouTube for free. And
okay.
Yeah, it's a beautiful black and white movie. It's called The Addiction, and it's my favorite. There's a walk-on by Christopher Walken, to tell you the truth. And so the main character really does grapple with evil, right? It really does grapple with evil, and it's some really dark stuff. I'm not going to give it away, but yeah, I can watch that thing 100 times, man.
All right, The Addiction. All right.
The Addiction. Yeah. So I have to ask you. I'm gonna bring it back to Trump and evangelicals and Q. I feel, from what I've seen, there's a direct connection between conspiracy theories and evangelical Christianity and Q. What's your opinion on all of this?
Well, you know what they say. God created his only son, who anyone who would believe in him will believe in anything. So I mean, that's the thing is, religion, it softens the mind for gullibility in a way. I mean, see, I grew up in North Jersey, where I didn't meet a born again Christian until I came to college in Pennsylvania. So when I came to Pennsylvania and met born again Christians for the first time, I'm hearing people talking about demons. I literally never heard anybody actually believe that. Like, I was shocked. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, my first encounter with fundamentalist Christians, they were like huddled over each other, shaking. And I was like, what's going on over there? And they said, the Lord is moving them. And I was like, what are you talking? Like, my mind was blown.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe that people would believe this. And I'm fascinated by why people believe these things, because I think it's just so ludicrous. Like, I'm just not. I mean, I grew up in a religious household. Like, my family grew up Jewish, and I went to Hebrew school and had the bar mitzvah and everything. But there's one thing you believe that there's a God and, whatever, but to believe in like the whole mythology of like devils and everything that comes with the fundamentalist belief system, it's whoa, out there. So if you got to believe in that stuff, I can't imagine anything would be too shocking for you.
I think so too. I think if you're huddling and having the Spirit of the Lord move through you, it's a hop, skip, and a jump to thinking Hillary Clinton has rape tunnels under the Capitol building.
Yeah, I mean, that's mild compared to I like talking about me. My brother is a big skeptic too. He's more in the skeptic community and I'm more on the atheist side of things. Even though they're both kind of the same, there's kind of we've carved out our own separate niches a little bit. He likes going after Scientology a lot. I don't. I love Scientology, not because I believe them, but because they're a great foil for Christianity, who I believe is the bigger fish. Yeah, so I think Tom Cruise is way more rational than any fundamentalist Christian I've ever met. He believes in an alien Xenu, right, with magic powers and stuff. But at least we know, like, aliens are possible. That's in the realm of possibility. Yeah, like a deity outside of time and space that created the world on the fourth day or second, whatever day it was. That's not even like that's like well past Xenu. So Xenu's rational compared to that. I mean,
well, that's the thing, right? Not the first person to point out that the only reason why Scientology seems so weird to us is because it's new.
Right. But I mean, the craziest things in Scientology are downright rational if you compare them to Judeo-Christianity.
Tons of mice in the chat says, I like to make up fake religious quotes. He who would be first to get in.
I did that. We had a challenge. I did a challenge on Dangerous Talk to create a Bible verse that was somewhat believable but crazy. I think that post is somewhere. But yeah, people may have some good ones. Yeah.
See, now I feel like I should make up a few too. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Tons of Mice also says, been rereading the New Testament and Jesus was kicking out demons left and right. Demons galore. Their number is legion. That's what I've heard.
So he brings up a great point. I made a meme a while ago because there was a passage brought up to my attention in the Bible where after Jesus is resurrected, the Bible says the ground shook, there was a massive earthquake, and saints rose from the dead, walked around for many to see. It was like I forget the wording, but it's like a great many people saw the saints walking around. And so I've made a meme about like how in the day, we live in a time of Walking Dead and everything. If religious leaders really wanted to get people back into the churches, they would lead with the zombies, with the saints walking around,
Right.
Why the Bible is absurdity populated. It's boredom populated by absurdity.
And I like that.
And yeah, so that's my quote. You gotta give me credit on that one. Okay. But why does that passage not make it out there with the saints walking around as zombies? Like I pointed out that verse and Christians thought that I was talking about Jesus's resurrection. I was like, no. The saints that were walking around, everybody saw.
Yeah. It's right there in Matthew. It's right there.
Yeah. It's in Matthew, right?
Yeah. The saints rise from the dead and go around preaching. They're not just they just don't like
right.
They're there. They're like knocking on doors. They're on street corners. They're like preaching the word.
Why isn't that in any of the religious movies, right? Why is that not Passion of the Christ? Where is that scene?
Yeah, that would.
I actually didn't see Passion of the Christ. It might have been there. But.
I did not either. I am not unhappy about that. How you doing, D Parks? Glad to see that you're here. And Tons of Mice says, in the beginning, God created Sam Elliott, and Sam took it from there. I think Sam Elliott. That's a good point. I think Sam Elliott is some kind of platonic form. He seems to be ageless, to tell you the truth. Saw him in Roadhouse. He looked old. Saw him, another movie 30 years later, still seemed to be old.
Yeah.
Consistently old.
Yeah.
So what do you say? So you're thinking about a book on morality. What do you say to Christians who will tell, and you know what's going to come next?
I do.
What do you say to Christians, like, where do you get your morality from?
Right.
Atheist.
I love that. I love that question because there's so many ways to answer it. So many ways. As if morality started with Christianity. It's ridiculous. You can go back to Plato. You go back to there's whole sections of bookstores about ethics. But that's the question that my next book is going to address. And I think I've decided on my title for it, but I don't want to give that out yet. But I love that question because it leads me. I think I'm a sci-fi person, and
Yes.
one of the things I really appreciated is that sci-fi movie and series Stargate.
Yeah.
And it underrated because the premise of the show and the movie was to disprove God. Right. And I remember I had a religious friend. He was a Messianic Jew, and he was kind of like a mentor to me, even though we had differing opinions. But he had a lot of knowledge, and we would talk about religion quite a lot. And he had a lot of knowledge. And he was a pretty rational person for you wouldn't expect it. So he was really great to talk to. And we both saw the Stargate movie when it came out, and we had different takes on it. But the idea was that Ra was impersonating a god.
Yes.
And that they had to disprove that Ra was a god. And in the TV series, they do that same thing. Tilk is trying to convince his fellow, Jaffa that the Goa'uld are not gods. And then the 10th season, the last season, they kind of hit everybody over the head with it, with the Ori, which was basically a love letter to atheism. That whole season it was great as far as that concerned. But I love that because there was an episode where Tilk makes a speech to his fellow Jaffa about morality, and that was what turned them, that the Goa'uld were immoral, and God is immoral in the Bible. So when they talk about morality, to me, I think that's like the best opening to hit them with the moral question when they're trying to hit me with it, because I think that will people have a sense of what is right and wrong. Not always the right one, but they have a sense. And like the passage I just read about torture, when a religious person hears that, how are they going to respond? I mean, they know torture. Even if you're a Bush era Republican who believes in torturing the Muslims, even if you're one of those people, you see the idea. Okay, you torture someone for 5 minutes to get information. God already has all the information. You don't need your information. Right? You torture somebody for 10 hours because you feel like it. God's supposed to be all loving.
Yeah.
Right? How does that work out? And then for all eternity, like even that, they gotta think, well, that's a good point. They might not want to admit it, but
it's a good point.
Eternal torture is not really.
Don't you think there has to be a better way? I don't even know.
I mean, there's got to be a better way. So
I think if I sat down, had a cup of coffee, I could jot down, maybe brainstorm 5 or 6 better ways.
Right. I mean, so even the right wing always tries to use like the defense of torture was always, well, you have a bomb, a ticking time bomb.
Right.
But God doesn't have a ticking time bomb.
He doesn't.
He knows everything. There's no ticking time bomb.
I remember reading William Lane Craig writing in defense of ancient Israeli soldiers doing their blitzkrieg through, the land of milk and honey, killing women and children. And of course, if you know your Old Testament, they were killing off animals too, for some reason.
Right.
Because that's what God wanted. Only part of the time. Sometimes he just wanted the people killed and not the animals. And sometimes he just went whole hog.
But don't forget, though, it wasn't all the women. Only the non-virgin women. Because the virgin women, God wanted them to save for themselves, so they could rape them.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that when I was reading his thesis, his article on why we shouldn't be feeling sorry for the victims,
right?
But we should really be feeling sorry for those who they're executioners. That was that.
Yeah. Well, in fairness, the victims they were worshiping Cupid, so
right. Baal, Cupid.
Yeah, Baal is the equivalent of Cupid in the pantheon. I mean, he's the god of love. That's
well, you could say
his deal.
You could see why Yahweh would have beef with him. You could see how why
Yahweh was the god of wrath, and Baal was the god of love. They didn't get along.
Maybe in Yahweh's mind, it was, I will become the god of love by killing the god of love.
Maybe. Yeah, that's the other. I remember I was reading up on the Canaanite pantheon of gods.
Yeah.
And because the Bible uses different names for God. Yeah. And there's a reason for it, because it's based off of the Canaanite pantheon of gods. And so it's actually multiple gods. And the Bible talks about this in a way, like in Genesis, it says us, it's talking about, God's talking to other gods. It's talking about to the other pantheons, like El, which is the father god, and Yahweh, which was in Canaanite, I think it was Yam. They called him Yam, but Yam is Yahweh, basically. And that was the god of wrath.
Yeah, indeed. I know that the last time you were here, your kids were 8 and I think 5 years old.
Okay. Yeah, now they're 12 and 9.
Wow. So taking the age of Trump, taking about this weird evangelical surge we had during the Trump era, and how have they been? How did you, as a father and as a skeptic, help navigate them through that period?
Well, it's interesting. My kids are not neurotypical. Neither of them are. So my son is high functioning Asperger. He's 12, and my daughter has learning disabilities, and she's 8. Or 9. She's 9 now. So my daughter doesn't really think about religion at all, really. She hasn't really been too much exposed to it. When she does the Pledge of Allegiance, she puts God in there. I don't really object to it at this point. But it's not really something that has come up for her. My son, he's a full-blown atheist already. And it's not, I tried not to talk about it with him, actually. And he just, from his exposure to religious people and religious ideas, he just, what I wanted to do is I wanted to take him to various houses of worship and expose him to all the different religions in the area. But, with COVID, that wasn't really optimal. But I have exposed him to the ideas of various religions in a positive way. I wanted him to get a positive sense of the other religions. And I have friends in pretty much every religion you can think of. My Facebook page is full of people of I have Muslim friends. I have, atheist friends, more atheist friends than anything else. But I have Christian friends and Jewish friends and everything, satanic friends, everything. So I try to expose my son to a lot of that. But yeah, he's pretty atheist at this point. Sometimes more so than me, and I have to tell him, take it down a notch. Don't you don't want to get in trouble in school by starting a religious argument.
Oh yeah. D Parks in the chat goes, in my home we say Linda in the place of God. Oh my Linda bless. Just a random name, just a random thing. Any name will work. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, it is. I don't really care. I use God. If I say, oh my God, I'll just say, oh my God. It's not a thing. I don't have an attachment to it. From Buddhism to fed by atheism, I don't have an attachment to that. It doesn't have the same meaning for me. So there's an atheist I knew Roger Scott Jackson, who are you familiar with him at all?
Name sounds
You
familiar.
might know him from his other name. He Sam Singleton, atheist evangelist.
Sure, I know Sam Singleton. Sure.
Yeah. So we had a conversation, me and Roger, about this, Roscoe, about he goes, God damn. He says that a lot. God damn. And he takes it back. We could say that too. It doesn't we don't have the same meaning to it. So we can use it. It doesn't, words change.
Yeah, they do. I like to use, I think I used it once or twice already, oh my fictitious God. Yeah, I like that. That's my own personal preference. Tobin Templeman. Oh my George Carlin. Good point. Good. I like that. I like that too. Tobin. I like that too. So you're working on the book. What other projects you got going on?
So I'm starting to work on the new book. I have like a million other books that I have planned in my head that I'll probably never get to. But this one, the ethics one, I really want to get to, because that I think is some groundbreaking stuff that I think will be good.
Well, the animal studies alone, in terms of morality, are effing incredible. That's what they are.
Oh yeah.
I had Professor Nathan Lentz on the channel probably last year, maybe the year before, and we talked about his book on morality and the human psyche and animals, and it was eye-opening for me, to tell you the truth. Yeah, it was eye-opening.
Like I know there's been studies with monkeys and sharing.
Yes,
I remember that one. That was a good one.
Right, indeed. So we're heading down towards the hour, and I like to ask this question. Is there something you wanted me to ask you, but I didn't get around to it? Was there a topic you really wanted to touch on, but I didn't get to? And this isn't about plugs or where people can find you online or anything.
Right.
We'll cover that. But is there something you really wanted to talk about, maybe about the book or maybe not, that we just didn't get around to?
So I have a burning question for you.
Shoot, man.
Did you really dip cheese into cheese the other day?
I did. Yes. So if you're on Facebook, if you follow me on Facebook,
that is hilarious. Was it good?
It
wasn't good, sir.
It wasn't an epiphany like I thought it would be. I'm not lying to you. I thought it was going to be really cool. So what happened, and I'll tell you this: there's this new Japanese anime movie that came out, just came in from Japan. I couldn't tell you the freaking name of it. My kid wanted to go see it, so we went down to the Menden Drive-In. Yeah, there's like 2 or 3 drive-ins in Massachusetts. So we schlepped an hour drive to Menden, and so I had a couple. There might have been a beer garden there, Stacks, just between you and me. No one else. There might have been a beer garden. There might have been some horrible, fried food. So I got one, I got in one hand my French fries with cheese, right? And the other one was the mozzarella sticks with horrible sauce, right? I put them down and I said, well, why can't I put a mozzarella sticks into the cheese sauce just to see how it would taste?
Yeah.
And that might have been after a couple of drinks. I don't know. Maybe it could have been, because we got there early, of course. So I did. It was not an epiphany as I thought it would be, and I did post it up the short. Yeah, it was. It was similar to the time that I only shot a gun once. I only went to a gun range once, indoors, and shot a couple of guns off. And I thought, well, there was a lot of hype about guns, shooting off guns, and I didn't really feel the hype. And the cheese on cheese, it seemed like a really good idea at the time, but
it does. Like, it sounds brilliant to me. Like, I'm tempted now to give that a shot.
It's worth trying, because everyone's taste is different, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has a different taste. So maybe try some cheese sauce with your mozzarella stick next time. And
I want to try, like, that gave me the idea, like, the Taco Bell cheese sauce is really good. Like, I want to get like a real, like, fancy mozzarella stick from like a nice Italian restaurant, put it in Taco Bell cheese sauce.
You know what I did, and I'll tell you that this is crazy. This is when I wasn't a vegetarian. This is a couple of years ago now. At this point, I had some Spam, and I thought to myself, what if I carved out a little bit of the middle of a Sam cube, like I cubed up the Spam, and then I put a little bit of cheese in it. And this might have been acting out. Maybe I was repressing some feelings, and then I decided to batter it and then deep fry it.
You gotta wrap it in bacon first, though.
Oh yeah,
you missed that. You missed the boat on that.
Right. So that was good on the first bite, and then after that, it was just freaking disgusting. It was just horrible.
Yeah.
But thank you for noticing that I was experimenting with fried cheese products.
The other thing I wanted to mention about the book is that I was fortunate enough to get my friend Herb Silverman to write the foreword. And if you don't know who Herb Silverman is, you should definitely get to know who he is. He's the founder of Coalition for America, the Secular Coalition for America. And he wrote a few books. His one book, Candidate Without a Prayer, is hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm plugging his book instead of mine, but for some real reason. But he's a hilarious guy. He's one of my 3 favorite atheists. And so I was really fortunate enough to get him to write the foreword for this book.
Fantastic. And the name of the book is Disproving God and 5 Adequate Reasons to be an Atheist. Once again, if you're interested in the book, you can check out the link in the description to this video.
Awesome. Yep.
Send you right over there. Stacksman, where can people find you online?
So there's SkepticInk.com/Dangerous Talk, Facebook/Dangerous Talk. Twitter is my at Dangerous Talk is my Twitter handle. You can search me even on Facebook. My regular personal profile is not really that personal. It's personal, but it's got like everybody. So you can find me on, I think it's Facebook.com/Stacks. I'm pretty accessible. My email is dangeroustalk@gmail.com. So there's a theme there.
I see the
Dangerous Talk. Yeah, my first radio show was Dangerous Talk. So
very good.
Yeah.
And just Tons of Mice has this fake quote here. Matthew 17:4. Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will put up 3 shelters: one for you, one for George Carlin, and one for Sam Kinison." Nice.
The trick though is to make it sound believable,
right?
Because Christians, my whole thing is Christians don't read their own Bible, so you want it to sound believable, but be just crazy enough.
Well, you got to do a Quentin Tarantino from Pulp Fiction, right? I mean, he made up that line from Ezekiel.
Right.
And people, there's probably a lot of Christians who think that bit.
I think that's really in there, and it's not
real.
Right.
Yeah. Right. That's not real.
Right. That's not real. But that's too in the realm of believability. We want something that's just past the realm of believability. So just crazy enough. Yes. But it could be in the Bible. Because the Bible says a lot of crazy things.
It does say a lot of crazy things.
Like if I quoted like the verse we were talking about before with the saints rising from the dead, people would think I made that up.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, so you want it to be like, you could throw something in there with a dragon or something. Maybe. Could be. Right. Or a giant is a good thing to throw in there because the Bible does talk about the giants. So
Sure. The Nephilim and everything. Sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right. I think that's a great place to stop.
Cool.
Everyone in the chat, thanks for coming and contributing. Stacks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in. And I hope you buy my book. Oh, the price of the book is $6.66. Everybody tells me they love the price. $666. Yeah, everybody says they love the price. So
well,
it's worth it, I think.
Keep up the good work, sir.
Thank you. You too.
Everyone, I'm going to be doing this crazy morning show at 9 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. That's right. 9 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. I'm going to be here. So, and then we do the open room from 10 to 11. So you want to pop in. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about progressive politics and atheism. Take care, everyone. Cool. Thanks again, Zach.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. And thank you for having me.